Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the build of the CARF Strega aircraft, the RENO racer. This thing is going absolutely awesome. So while we're filming this, we're in the middle of the engine installation video. So that video is going to come out first, and then we'll get into the build of the aircraft. Now, generally with builds, we like to start off with all the equipment that we're installing in the aircraft, and we move into the tail section and everything. But this video, or this build, we started off with the engine install. So a little bit different, but in this video, which is video number 2, we're gonna cover all of our equipment to begin with. So of course, as we're familiar with, we have the Colm inline 230cc engine. Man, that thing is beautiful, just gorgeous. We've got the prop, the scale prop. So this is carbon fiber blades, the Vario prop hub. That is what we are going to be pulling this aircraft through the air with. Laid out on the table here, we've got all of our other equipment. So the actual aircraft is going to be piloted with a jetty system. We do have a Cortex for this aircraft as well. So we're going to have a Cortex setup, a central box, all the normal stuff that we would generally install. So we've got our central box sitting in here. We've got some of our other stuff sitting in here. And then all of our other jetty products. Now we're going to be using a Rex 12, a Rex 7. We've also got a couple other things here. So we've got a 3-cylinder temperature sensor. We've got a Hall sensor. So those are all fun things that we'll be using on this aircraft as well. Our servos on the aircraft are all going to be MKS 9930s. We are cycling all these servos right now, or burning them in is what I like to call it. And we're just cycling all of the servos. We still have those ones to do. I just do this in the background through the jetty box, goes through 990 cycles and takes about 20 minutes per servo. The gear on the aircraft is going to be the Electron ER50s for the mains and an ER30 for the tail. Now this is all specifically designed for this aircraft. The tail system is really, really cool, but this is how the package comes when you order it. And then we've got our scale main legs here as well, which are just beautiful. So the standard Electron quality, and that's all going through a GS200 controller. You can see there, designed for P51, ER50, ER30. Other jetty box here, we've got an advanced 40 ESC. Now this speed controller is for the auto start on the turbine or the starter motor. So that's what's going to be powering the starter system for the aircraft. And then lastly, we've got a nice set of Revic wing bags with the lighter side of RC logos on it. That is the equipment that's in the aircraft. Very, very simple, very straightforward. And let's start looking at what we're going to be doing on this aircraft as a first step other than the engine. All right guys, and I'd like to take a moment and introduce today's video sponsor, which is FlexiSpot. Now we do most of our work standing here in the shop, which is very, very healthy. Not a lot of computer work is done here in the shop, but if you guys are familiar with the channel, you know that we've been looking for a bench to go right here. We've been using this table since we moved in, and it's okay, but it's really not ideal. Now our other benches are quite tall, counter height 36 inches, and I do like some shorter benches, but that's where FlexiSpot comes in. So this thing is crazy adjustable. Its lowest point here is the top of the desk or tabletop workbench is 25 inches. Now today I'm 205 pounds. This thing has no problem lifting my weight. And when you see how high this thing goes, it is a game changer for the shop. Oh, more. Okay, so we are at 50 inches to the top of the workbench. Whew. And infinitely adjustable through the entire range. So cool. All right, so when my order was placed, it didn't take long to arrive at all. It was under a week. I think it was only a few days, and all the pieces arrived in separate boxes, which was very handy, very helpful, very easy to assemble. Basically one tool and a Phillips screwdriver. All the construction is metal, extremely solid. It all fits very accurately, and I'm quite impressed with how everything just works. The tabletop or desktop gets shipped separately. Very easy to assemble the base to the desktop, and of course all the wiring is very well thought out. It's all hidden underneath the cable tray, and the extra little drawer that we added was very handy. The desk itself is quite hefty. Most of the weight is in the base, but ultimately great design, very impressed. All right, so our normal workbench height that we work at is about 38, 39 inches. That's for our two most commonly used workbenches. So we've set the desk here to 38 inches, which again is our kind of normal height here. We've got Nez helping us out. I just want to show you guys how stable these things are. So I wasn't expecting it to be this stable. The base is very, very heavy. It does, obviously there's vibrations in the entire unit. You can see that in the cup. But if we're doing our normal work, it's not crazy at all. This is awesome. Really, really impressed with this. So if I was using this for a typical computer desk and typing on my keyboard, it is insanely solid. And for what we're using it for, thumbs up. A few of the other things I'm really impressed with. Number one, you can customize your entire setup. So we opted for the white setup. You can see the leg style here. That was great. Obviously the legs are completely adjustable. We did have a drawer included here as well too, which is a nice touch. You've got your display here, which is your adjustment. You've also got presets on the adjustment. So I can set this to 4 different heights, push of a button, and it's done. I love the all metal construction, which is really nice. Now there's 2 different ways of thinking with this product. If you're using this for a desk in an office or in your computer space, it is a real nice change to be able to stand up while you work. I suspect I will probably end up getting more of these for my office, my home office, and get it all converted. I think this is outstanding. For our space, for the workshop, this is just such a great option, but ultimately, standing is what we do, but having the adjustability feature is great. Now, FlexiSpot brings you these conveniences and options at a very, very reasonable price. Now, if you guys are interested in ordering one of these units, there's a link down below in the video description, also the first comment in the video, and we do have a discount code for you as well. So if you do place an order of $500 or more, you can get $50 off your order using the code YTB50. Again, if your order is $500 or more, it gets you $50 off your order. So thank you FlexiSpot for allowing us to use this product in the shop. Huge benefit here to the shop. You guys know that I love products like this that are time savers. This is going to be a back saver and just allow the flexibility of moving an aircraft or a part or whatever we're working on up and down while we work on it is a huge benefit. So thank you FlexiSpot. And if you guys are interested in this, at the end of the video, click that link down below and check it out. So first thing we're doing is moving into the tail section. I'm doing the tail section because this is how I generally start builds, and we'll start off with our elevators. That's going to be step number 1. Then we'll move into our rudder system, and then we'll start working our way forward. We're probably going to skip the tail wheel for now and move into the wing. So let's look at the elevator sections or horizontal stabs first. So normal CARF setup, we've got bags. This is the stab pack, so this is all the items that you need to set up your stabs, which is very straightforward. Now there's no physical servo hold down system for the servo. The servos fit in place and the hatch is what holds it down. So that's the system there. We've got our standard CARF hardware here for the back end, and this stuff's pretty straightforward. You've got a ball joint going on one side, you've got a clevis going on the servo side, and the ball joint is double captured in between both of the horns. So very simple, very standard setup. We'll get our servo now and we'll start getting it installed. All right, so as a first step, generally we would always update all of our jetty stuff. That's already been done because these came out of an aircraft we were setting up previously for the owner. So we are going to use the central box, of course, to get this set up. So I've already got a model created, but we will go in and make sure we've got all of our stuff organized for our basic channel layout. All right, so we got our linkage all set up here for the elevators. The carbon rod is not included in the kit, but this is always a good idea to do on kits. And I like to glue my carbon rod to the metal rod underneath, and it makes just a really strong connection point to the servo. So this is all done. So what we need to do next is get our servo installed. Now, because there's no real fixing method for this servo, we're going to do a couple things here. Number one, we're just going to use a little bit of high sol and glue the servo in place. Now, that may sound like a very permanent solution. It's really not. If you ever need to get the servo out, you just warm up a soldering iron and you can just melt the high sol that's gluing the servo in place. So that's fixing point number one that we're going to use. And then what else we'll do is we'll take some silicone, just standard silicone, put a big goop on the top here, and then when we fasten down our servo cover, that silicone is going to compress, and when it cures, it's going to make a nice stable connection between the hatch cover and the servo. Again, if it ever needs to come off, when you peel this hatch cover off, I suspect the silicone is going to come off the hatch cover and it's going to remain on the servo. So again, decent, simple solutions. All right, so we've mixed up a little bit of high sol here, and we're just going to put a couple globs around the servo. So just one glob on the back side, and we'll do one on each side of the servo. All right, so we got one on each side of the servo there, one on the end of the servo, and now we'll put a glob of silicone in the middle and we'll place our cover on. Okay, so just standard silicone, nice big glob. So when we compress it, it is going to have some squish. So I don't know if you can tell depth perception on the camera there, but there is what it's going to look like. So we've got about double the height or double the space to make up. Now we'll just take our cover, place it over top, squish that silicone down, and there we go. So now we'll pre-drill our little holes and we'll use these supplied screws. With CARF kits, you really want to make sure you're using all the supplied screws that they send you. Reason for that is some of the pre-drilled holes, they're drilled specifically for these screws. In this case, it doesn't really matter, but these are nice screws to use. All right, elevator number one, or actually this is number two because it's the right one, but elevator is done. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. It's already fairly solid, but once this is all cured, once the silicone cures, it's going to be absolutely awesome. So looks good. We should get enough travel with this. We don't need any longer servo arm there, and nice solid typical CARF setup with ball joint clevis. I love it. All right, time to get started on the wings. So what I did initially here was put the wings together just on the table over there, just to kind of see how everything worked. So we put the wings together. Obviously the wing tube goes in the wing tube receiver there. And there's a bolt that goes through one side and threads into a blind nut on the other side. So that keeps the wing together. And then you've got two more nuts that go in the leading edge of the wing, and that screws into the fuselage. So that's how the wing is, I guess, initially installed on the aircraft. And then there's two big bolts that go through the back here and screw into the fuselage. So lots of different support on the wings. What we're going to do as a first step here is we're going to take off the gear cover and take a look at how everything is mounted. And the problem with the pins is they don't go in all the way. They go in about 5 millimeters shy of where they need to be. So if we look inside the gear, hopefully you can see it, there's a bit of a ridge, a machining ridge in there, which is preventing the pin from going in as far as possible. So I think the easiest solution here is we're just going to take these pins and grind down a bit more of an angle on this end, on the bench grinder. And that's going to allow the pin to go in the proper depth. Because right now, didn't matter how much I forced it, I wasn't able to get it past that little ridge. All right, so pins are firmly mounted inside the legs. They've been Loctited, flat spots added, so that is permanent. Like I mentioned before, our angle adjustment is going to be done in the actual trunnion itself. So what we can do now is we can start getting our gear and legs and everything installed in the wings. So we're going to do this before we move on to the surfaces. Don't know why, that's just the way we're doing it. So that's how the gear goes in there. We've got lots of play here side to side. Obviously we got to stay away from the wing tube here. So what I'm going to do is get this gear hooked up to the controller, and we're going to have our door sitting in here just so we can see how everything operates with the door. And there's really no guidance as to, you know, where this needs to get positioned. Obviously we want to make sure it's going to have ample clearance everywhere. So we'll run some tests here initially with that. So we've got one of the blind nuts installed on the gear. The point of just doing one is so now we can operate this landing gear and it stays put. So we can get everything adjusted, and then while that's happening we can drill our other holes once we're satisfied with everything. So because there's really no guidance here, we're just getting it nice and centered in the wheel cutout there. There's another shot as it closes. So just looks like a good position there. We're kind of centered in between the rails as well, so we're grabbing the same amount of rail on the front and the back. We will have to do a little bit of an adjustment right here on the door. The little edge of it right there, it needs to be sanded down a little bit. But I think that is a good position. So what we'll do now is we'll take our drill bit and we will drill out our other 4 holes, and then we'll pull the gear out and we'll drill these 2 sizes up. All right, so if not using air on your aircraft system here, the gear doors are going to be a little bit tricky, I think. There probably is more room back here, but then any of the stuff that you add back here on the back portion of the door is going to interfere with your main wing bolt there. You just have to keep in mind there's another one right there. So I think what we're going to use is these awesome KST servos. Now these things are, what are they here? 9, we'll just call it 9 kilograms. So you're talking like 22 pounds of force from this servo. And the nice thing is we can mount it right here on the root of the wing, and it is perfectly in line with the fixing mechanism here. So this is going to work out just beautifully, and yeah, I think that's what we're going to do and where we're going to mount that the gear door servo. So this is the kind of stuff that when you're figuring stuff out like this and there's not a predetermined way from the manufacturer, always requires a little bit of thinking. And I like to do the one wing completely, get it all sorted out before I move on to the other wing. So this is the first wing we're working on. The other wing, which is our right wing, is right there, and haven't done anything with that wing yet, but we have the gear solved. We've got, I think, a plan in place for the doors now. So we're gonna work on getting those doors sorted next. All right, guys, we've got the servo sorted out here, and we've made a plywood mount for it. Now this plywood mount is going to go on the root of the wing like we talked about. So we've just glued the plywood mount together, glued the servo in place. We're going to put some screws in there as well too, but pretty straightforward system, and yeah, should work awesome. And then we will actually glue this in place. So we'll get both of these made up, and then we'll be able to install them in the wings. All right, so we've got both of our servo mounts done up here. They are ready to be glued. Now, we've got obviously this gear installed here. We're going to extend this gear to allow us room to be able to glue this in place. Now we want to try and get these set up evenly as much as possible so we're not doing crazy different lengths on the arms, but what we'll do is we'll get this gear out of the way, and then that gives us good access to that area. All right, guys, so we've got both of our servos installed, and right over there, this is going to be like an infinite time warp. We're doing a live stream right now on the Lighter Side of RC After Dark. So if you're not familiar with what that is, basically the Lighter Side of RC After Dark is for all the stuff that really doesn't belong on this channel. So we're doing live streams, possibly interviews and podcasts. So definitely check it out. There's a link down below in the video description that links to the Lighter Side of RC After Dark. And if you're watching this, well, when you watch the After Dark, they've seen all this stuff that we're doing right now well in advance. All right, so we've got our servos installed. They're clamped in place. Not really any rhyme or reason as to where we put these. All I did was the output shaft of the servo right there is kind of in line with the underside of this opening. That was the way to set these guys up. So we've used 20-minute high sol there. We just need to let those cure basically overnight, but by tomorrow they will be nice and solid. So we've got the landing gear installed on that plane over there. Now we're gonna get the landing gear installed on the right wing using the exact same methods. All right, so we're just getting the gear doors all set up here on this one side. So we did that gear first. Now we move to the right-hand wing. Now we're just gonna work on the gear door on the right-hand wing, and then we'll go back to the left wing. So we had to do a little bit of grinding here on the door pieces. You can see there a little bit of grinding of the epoxy and tube and stuff. That just allows clearance in this area. No big deal at all. I've seen a couple pictures here online. One fellow used ball joint and ball joint, and one fellow used the stock setup here with a ball joint on the door side. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna extend this gear, get it hooked up to our system here, and then that'll allow us to get this gear door all adjusted. Now the mount here, you do have obviously a little bit of angle adjustment or rotation adjustment, and you've also got some up and down adjustment here as well. So there's quite a bit of movement there, and we'll have to play around with that, opening the gear door or opening and closing the gear just to get everything set up properly. So I'm gonna kind of get this all queued up here, and I'll show you guys what happens. All right, so these doors are definitely a bit of a nightmare on this kit, but I've got them all figured out here. So what I've done is the spacing here up and down this collar we've got run all the way towards the base or the retract unit. Here's kind of a frontal shot there. And one of the keys is you have to have a pretty strong bend on this thing. If you take this ball joint and put it on the inside, what happens is that all rubs on this piece right down here when everything's retracted, and it pushes that gear door forward. So the edge of the gear door, this part right here, is sitting about here. It doesn't work at all. So you got to run this arm on the outside, and I just used a Carf ball joint here. It has a bit of a spacer to it. You can see it's a pretty strong angle, and all I had to do was adjust the angle here in and out to get the door closed 100%. So works now. Perfect. All right, and so I'm just doing my standard tape trick here. So this is reminding me that we need to make sure we do our leg pin flats and readjust the leg collar. So we haven't done any sort of straightening of this leg yet in relationship to the actual airframe. So I think it's pretty close, but we want to make sure we get that set. And when we do get the leg set, we will probably need to readjust the collar here. So that's just my reminder right there. All right, so with everything done as far as this one gear and the door is concerned, I'm going to get these flat spotted now. Obviously we've got our little things to do on the tape. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure in a certain amount. So probably actually use this panel line here and just confirm that that panel line is parallel to the center of the wing. And then what we'll do is we'll set our wheel set up, and then we'll get our pins set up as well too. So the easiest way to do this is we're going to disconnect the door now. So I'm going to take the door off of the leg here and undo the whole door fixing. We'll get the gear set up, and then we'll redo the door. Now, having done all this stuff, when I do that wing over there, I'm going to get the gear set before I do the door. All right, so we pulled the leg out. We got it lined up with this panel line here. That panel line is correct. It's parallel with the root of the wing. So what I've done here is, I know there's controversy back and forth, but I've added a couple degrees of toe in on these gear. So we screwed the screws in. That's a little secret here with the Electron gear. You screw the screws in, it puts a little mark on the pin, undo the screws, pull it out, and then you're able to add just tiny little flat spots. So we've tightened all those guys up with Loctite both sides. So now that gear is perfect where we want it to be. So what we'll do is we'll reinstall our door, and we'll get this angle here and everything set up 100%. All right, our left wing is now done. So both wings, the gear is complete. The wings aren't done, the gear is complete. So our path that we're going to run our wires is, I'm going to put a hole on each of the wings right above the wing tube. So our path for our door servo is right here. And the reason I'm putting it right there is because then I don't have to add an extension to the door servo. And then for our actual surfaces, they'll come down this part of the wing, come through a small hole, and then just go through the hole that we make on the top of the wing. So when we put this plane together, we'll put both wings together, put the bolt holding it together, and then there'll be one 12-pin ash lock, two 12-pin ash locks to put together. Super simple. So I'm going to work on getting the lines run and those holes made. Once that's done, we're going to move on to our flap and aileron surfaces. So I use my awl tool here and make a hole, and then I take the 6mm through fittings. These are for Festo 6mm, but I love them for this situation as well too. These are available on my website, and that is going to be where all of our wires come through. So we'll have three wire leads that come through here, and then our single 2-wire for the gear. So now we'll run all of our items through there, and we will be able to do up our connector. All right guys, and that's everything for this episode of the Strega build from Carf. We got a lot done in this episode. Obviously our back end, our tail is, the horizontal stabs are done. We've got the gear installed and ready to go. We've got our gear doors figured out, so it's been good progress with this aircraft. So next episode, we're going to continue on with the wings, with the flaps and aileron surfaces on both of the wings. And then what we'll start doing as well is we're going to start meshing the rest of the engine install with the build. So the very first video was a lot about the engines. That was the first video. This is video number 2. And we are going to jive everything together now. And just a reminder, guys, don't forget to check out Flexi Spot for this awesome standing desk, or adjustable desk / workbench is the better way to put it. So links down below in the video description, also the first comments in the video. Thanks guys for watching, and we'll see ya in the next video.